Wish it could have been a Jet, Fernando.
We'll see what happens.
Live from Radio Row in Indianapolis, it's Combine time as teams look for their next superstar. Some of the biggest names in sports and entertainment will be right here. Get ready for the 2026 draft, baby. It's the Jake Asman Show.
We are back inside the Indiana Convention Center, and joining me right now is one of the best NFL draft analysts out there. You check him out all the time on ESPN. It is Matt Miller. Matt, I'm glad we can make this work.
Yeah, appreciate you, Jake.
So the Jets now at number 2, following the big trade today of Jermaine Johnson and getting back to T'Vondre Sweat. Feels like they're clearly going to go edge. What would you do at number 2?
Yeah, it definitely feels that way, and thankfully it's a year where there's several good edge prospects. So I think, bringing in T'Vondre Sweat gives us some of the puzzle pieces to put together, right? That this team's moving to probably more of a 30 front, at least as a base. So I think you can rule out Ruben Bain because he's not the type of stand-up outside rusher that you're going to want in a 30 front. So now you get to Arvell Reese from Ohio State, David Bailey from Texas Tech. I personally have Arvell Reese rated a little bit higher than David Bailey. I think some of that's on upside, some of that's on the speed that he plays with, on top of having, really good hand strength, really good lower body power, versatility, in that he can be that Micah Parsons, Abdul Carter type player. But I would say today the edge would be to Arvell Reese, but we're about 2 hours before workout, so right. A lot could change in a little bit.
For you as someone who does this year round, how big is this week in terms of your final evals on prospects?
It's big, and it's crazy to me. A lot of people want to kind of turn their nose up at the combine or make jokes about it, but why turn away 27, 28 years of historical data? Why not use that information to say, like today, Ruben Bain's arm length comes out. You can pretty quickly look and say he would be the shortest armed edge rusher drafted in the first round in the last 28 years. So are you willing to bet on him as an outlier? That information does matter to me. And the same with athletic testing. We're going to get 3-cone times, vertical jumps, 40 times, short shuttle. And I think you would be kind of arrogant to not use that information to help make an informed decision, right? That's what analytics is essentially. It's like using data to help make decisions. Yes, film matters, tape matters, but I think looking at the context of the numbers we get this week, it does help inform my process at least.
So you mentioned, of course, that Reese feels like the likely pick at 2. If they were to go Bailey, how would he fit? What type of player would the Jets be getting?
Yeah, he's all speed around the edge, but I think he brings really good effort in the run game, and he does have some power element, which you have to have. As a pass rush evaluation, I'm always going to want guys that have that speed to power conversion. Reese has it a little bit better than Bailey just based on size and strength, but Bailey does have it. He's 6'3", 250. He can play with leverage and win with speed. And I think at Texas Tech, we saw him in a lot of stand-up alignments. So it's easy to watch that Texas Tech defense and be like, okay, what would it look like in our defense? There it is. Like they showed you weekly what he could do.
How about at pick 16 for the Jets? It feels like there's a myriad of different ways this board could kind of break in front of them. If I ask you for what the dream scenario would be at 16, what does that look like?
Yeah, I think your hope is that, maybe Jermon McCoy, the corner from Tennessee, who's not testing this week after missing the year with an ACL, maybe he's on the board at 16. One of the wide receivers, maybe Jordan Tyson from Arizona State is available. I'm going to plant my flag now. I'm firmly in the don't take Ty Simpson camp for the Jets.
So am I.
I think you have 3 first-round picks in 2027. You have them for a reason. Use those picks to get your quarterback. I think this year you build the foundation. You have your pieces on the edges of the offensive line. Now, fill in the gaps. Get your edge rusher. Go get another receiver to complement Garrett Wilson. Go get a corner to replace Sauce Gardner. I think those are the moves you look to make at 16.
What about at pick 33 for the Jets? Even pick 44, if there's that scenario where Ty does really drop, does he make sense there, or would you still bypass taking him altogether?
If he's there at 44, I think that's where you talk about value. And that goes into your evaluation as a team. Do you think he could ever be a starter? If you think he could be a starter, then you just take him at 16 and you don't risk that, right? So how's the value proposition different at 16 and 44? Are you saying at 44, like, all right, there's no one else on the board that we think could be a starter. We think this guy maybe could be, so we'll take him. We see that every year with quarterbacks who have a second or third round grade. They fall, right? Because teams are saying, we don't think you'll be a starter for us, but we could probably get a starting right guard in the second round, or a starting corner in the second round, or a starting guard linebacker in the third. So that's where you have to have those conversations of what's on the board right here, and are there players that could be starters for us versus taking a quarterback who, if you don't have a starter grade on, why take them there?
Are there any quarterbacks in this draft, Matt, that are intriguing, maybe day 3 type of dart throws?
I think Cole Payton is the most intriguing day 3 guy. I think Drew Aller will probably go 3rd round. Garrett Nussmeier probably goes 3rd round. Carson Beck probably goes 3rd round. So if we take them off the table, Cade Klubnik is interesting to me because I think there's a lot to work with there. But Cole Payton from North Dakota State is the one where, like, why not bet on traits? And why not bet on somebody that you're hoping can continue to be developed? You know, he was a Wildcat quarterback the first 3 years at North Dakota State. This past year, first year really as a full-time starter, played well, good Senior Bowl week. I think you'll have a good week here. Like if I'm gonna roll the dice on a quarterback on day 3, like let's bet on traits or somebody that won a ton of games in college, and he did both.
How about if the Jets are just looking at their options at 16 and they have the extra draft capital? Who would you trade up for? Is there a guy that you, if they start to slide,
There's
you move up?
No way. No, not this year.
What about Caleb Downs? Let's say he starts to slide. Could you come up to 7 with the Commanders and make a deal?
No, because you're giving up a first-round pick next year to come up.
Do you think? What do you think? 16 and let's say pick 44 of round 2 could potentially get you.
I mean, maybe that gets you to 12, right? I mean, maybe. I just don't think you trade up for anything but a quarterback and an elite left tackle or an elite pass rusher. Like when the Texans traded up to get Will Anderson, cool. That's a good trade. Do that. But look, the Falcons traded up last year to get James Pierce and Javon Walker. How is that? That hasn't really worked out well for them at this point. So I'm just anti-trading up, especially there's no way in hell I would give up a 2027 draft pick right now.
Those are untouchable. Dude.
Untouchable. Like, ask for my firstborn before I ask for a 2027 draft pick because next year's class looks like it could be historic. I would rather move off this year's draft into next year's than give up anything for next year. And so to your point, like, okay, what if it's 16 and 44? This isn't a team that's 1 player away. This is a team that's 12 players away. I think you need as many swings of the bat as possible instead of, you know, even if you trade for Caleb Downs, say he becomes the next Kyle Hamilton. How much of a difference is that for a team that doesn't have a quarterback, doesn't have a wide receiver 2, doesn't have a number 1 corner, doesn't have an elite pass rusher yet? Maybe they get that guy too. There are just too many holes for me to ever justify giving up another starting caliber player to get one guy.
So a huge need for the Jets is one of the things you just said, a wide receiver 2 next to Garrett Wilson. Give us the pecking order of receivers for you and maybe some options for the Jets with some of their picks.
Yeah, so I have Mekhi Lemon, USC number 1. Then I've got Carnell Tate from Ohio State number 2. I think they'll both be off the board by 16. Jordan Tyson from Arizona State potentially is in that mix right there. He would be 3rd for me. Then I have Omar Cooper Jr. from Indiana at 4. And I have Denzel Boston from Washington at 5. So those would be my 5 guys that I'm like, those are first rounders. I think after that, you get to Casey Concepcion from Texas A&M, Malachi Fields from Notre Dame. They're in that mix. And then you get to like Elijah Surratt, the other Indiana wide receiver. But it's a deep receiver class. I had 18 in my top 100, 11 in my top 50. So the Jets are in a good spot. We could see, 7 receivers in the first round, but you're still in a pretty good spot to get one.
Next year with the 3 firsts in 2027. And I know we always say, next year's quarterback class is going to be better, but I'd be shocked if it's not better, just given we're looking at maybe only 1 potentially going in the first round this year. As we sit here, just how good could next year's class be? Because I have Jet fans who tune in every day, and we're already talking about marching for Arch and just getting the top pick a year from now and finally trying to get our long-term answer at that position.
Yeah, so you're right. We always say wait till next year. But here's what I'll say about next year. If Arch Manning was in this class, he would have been the number 1 pick. If Dante Moore was in this class, he'd be the number 2 pick. If Brandon Sorsby was in this class, he'd be a top 15 pick. So it's not like last year where we said, if these guys all hit these markers, they'll be first rounders. It's truly a situation where these guys are already, they would have been first round picks. They just opted to go back to school. And so it's not the hype that we are normally selling you on Lenore Sellers or Garrett Nussmeier. It's legit. These guys would have been first round picks this year.
You've been doing this a long time. What is your favorite draft memory or a draft that you've been a part of that you've been covering?
Gosh. I mean, my first draft was 2012 at Radio City, and walking down the walkway at Radio City and finding my seat in the press pool, Bleacher Report, Matt Miller, like I'm covering the draft in person. That will be untouchable as far as memories go.
You think they should bring it back to Radio City one of these years?
No. When you get 400,000 people to show up to Nashville, Tennessee to watch the draft.
That was the first draft I've ever been at in person, 2019.
It's never, Kansas City, I think there was like 500,000 people there. They're never going to put it back in Radio City. They might put it back in New York, but it won't be in Radio City.
Yeah, I'll be in Pittsburgh this year, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
I've heard great things about the city.
Same. I'm excited. I've not been, but I'm excited to be there. I just need time to hit a Pirates game while I'm there. That's my only request.
I'm PNC Park. It looks like great. All right, quick hitters for you here at the end. What is the player in this draft that not enough people are talking about?
Yeah, I will say D'Angelo Ponds from Indiana, and he's an older prospect.
Brugler said the same thing.
That's funny. He's an older prospect, a smaller guy, but if you just ask me who's your favorite player to watch, he would be on that list.
It's funny because people have said he kind of plays how Aaron Glenn, the player, played when he was in the NFL.
That's a very good comp, yeah, and a great compliment for Ponds.
Give us the position group that is underrated in this draft class.
Yeah, I think it's safety. We could see 3 safeties in the first round, more safeties than quarterbacks and running backs combined. The safety group is strong in round 1, and then I think we have really good depth all the way through. After
we get through the first initial picks, where is the spot for Jeremiah Love?
Man, I think it starts at probably at 6, and I don't know that he gets past Kansas City at 9, but but also like the Cardinals could take him at 3. Like crazy things could happen. But I think 6 is where you kind of start the conversation. 7 to Washington, 8 to Cincinnati, or 8 to New Orleans. Those are the sweet spots for him, I think.
And favorite restaurant when you're here at the Combine every year to hang out at?
I think I'm contractually obligated to say St. Elmo's, but they're all good. Like I've never been to a bad restaurant in Indianapolis.
Do you try the shrimp cocktail? Is that for you?
Of course you got to. Yeah.
It's become like a tourist thing at this point.
Yeah, and
rite of passage.
I'm always dealing with like sinus stuff when I'm here, and that's a quick fix.
Love it. Well, good luck this week. I know you're going to be on the air. Tom, where can people find you?
Yeah, turn on ESPN over the next 4 or 5 days, and good chance you'll see me. But we're doing daily notebooks as well, so ESPN.com if you want to read content or NFL Draft Daily every day at 3:00.
Check it out. Matt Miller will be a part of the coverage for ESPN throughout the week. Matt, you're the man. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
Matt Miller from ESPN. Quick break. We continue live from Radio Row right after this.